Ippo, the hardy main character with dynamite punches and an infighter who never backs down. Ippo is a powerful style with a lot of tricks up its sleeves, but its main characteristic is that it's a pure infighter, bordering on the line of a brawler but not quite there. It pushes in on opponents with strong hooks and uppercuts that shove blocks out of the way and cut them apart. The punches themselves don't bear a lot of range, but that generally doesn't matter when your entire gimmick is staying up close. Similarly to Charge, Ippo is the only other fighter on the roster that completely lacks a backdash. Trying to use your backdash button actually sends you forward instead of just doing nothing, ironically, so you're going to find yourself right in front of people if you're used to escaping that way. Because of this, leaving an interaction is going to be difficult for you unless your opponent forces the distance, so watch your stamina bar closely and make sure you don't stun yourself. Once you're close and can start swinging, your punches are strong against blocks and will push through them without too much trouble. Your base damage is also really powerful, but your chip damage and anti-heal are more on the average side of the spectrum. Your dashes are quick and speedy, which makes movement and attack in a tight area easier for you. Ippo's base punches actually have a unique characteristic to them. They don't fully alternate. While most styles' opening light attack switches hands after every strike, Ippo's does not. Instead of left, right, Ippo's swings fire twice from the right arm before moving to the left one for only one swing. This hidden gimmick gives Ippo a passive form of mix-up at higher levels that can be tough for those who perfect dodge to keep track of. But now, for the moment I'm sure a lot of you are waiting for, it's time to discuss Ippo's true ability, the Dempsey roll. The Dempsey roll, or just Dempsey, or roll in some cases as I describe it throughout this video, is an actual boxing technique that combines defense and offense in the same movement. And this is Ippo's biggest technique and the manga he originates from. Pressing your ability button will cause your character to start a light weaving formation in an infinity symbol. Upon every press of the button, your character will weave again. After your third weave, your Dempsey will be fully quote-unquote charged, which causes your M1s to change into devastating hooks that obliterate blocks and health bars. This isn't as easy as it sounds though. The Dempsey causes a lot of different things to happen when it's triggered, and knowing everything about it is really important if you want to succeed. For starters, every time you press your ability key to weave, you will become invincible for a very small time frame. While directly against an opponent, pressing the ability at the right time will cause the hit to go right through you, where you can then attack immediately afterwards. On top of this passive, every press of the button also consumes a small amount of your stamina, and the bar passively drains over time as you're weaving. Do keep in mind that you are not invincible if you're not pressing the button, so you can be hit while just normally sitting there. Being hit in any way cancels your Dempsey and causes it to go on cooldown, which is decreased by landing punches on your opponent. Landing heavies reduces the cooldown faster for the roll than lights, and hitting an opponent's body rather than their block gives back even more. This way, the more aggressive you are, the easier it is for you to make a devastating play. As for the swings of the rolls themselves, the first one to come out is quick and extremely strong. After you successfully land that first swing, you can continue to swing until you stop or if you stamina break yourself. Using a heavy while Dempsey rolling will cancel it, so that's sometimes a good way to follow up the attack if you don't think your opponent will dodge it. Now, since the Dempsey passively drains stamina while you're weaving, opponents are going to back away from you and try to stall as much as they can so you can't get to them in time. When you start the roll, your enemy's movement speed and dashes are heavily reduced, which can make escaping difficult for them if you're close or they're in a corner. The roll scooches you forward a small bit with each ability press, but it's not normally far enough to get you across the ring with enough stamina to actually attack. Therefore, using the Dempsey from far away is often not the best play and will downright fail at times if an opponent's dashes are stronger than average. On top of this, the Dempsey roll requires 3 ability button presses to actually activate, like I said earlier. The first 2 presses are you, quote-unquote, revving your movement, which will signal to your opponent that they need to get away. You can get your 3 revs in pretty quickly if you just mash the button, and you're still invulnerable with each press, but it's regardless a factor that you need to keep in mind. New Ippo players often just tap it once, not knowing what it does, before just swinging normally, so make sure you don't do that by mistake. Now that we've established how the Dempsey works, landing it is an entirely different conversation. Overall, if you ask me, which you technically are in this case, using it from a distance is generally not the play. Most of the time, your opponent will actively backdash or run from you despite their movement debuff, and you won't have enough stamina to damage them by the time you get to where they are. Ignore your instincts and wind that thing up when right in front of them. It'll usually scare them or generally catch them off guard, and they might try to swing at you to no avail. Mash that button, get your revs up, and fire quickly. At higher ranked gameplay though, this is a lot harder to perform simply. An important thing to keep note of is that your opening hook out of the Dempsey will always come from your right hand. Because of this, you might find a strategy that people will use is basically spam dashing to their left and hope they perfect dodge your first hit by chance, which is in fact possible. Along with that, the Dempsey roll is especially weak to a feint attack. If you didn't know, an opponent feinting actually lowers the iframes on your dashes, or invincibility frames, which is what often allows them to catch you if you're trying to dash quickly. The Dempsey roll weaves count as a dash, and therefore will cut off your roll iframes and tap you out of it. These two things are the primary counterplay to the Dempsey at close range. The ways to deal with them are simple, but also relatively not. To deal with the dashers, do your best to wait and watch their pattern while you idle in your weave. As soon as you see their next dash play, throw your opening swing and odds are it will still hit. As for the feinting, you have two options. You can train your reaction time to fire your hook as soon as you see their heavy highlight for a counter hit, or time your R press to weave through the feint just as it's about to land. While feints cut down iframes, they don't eliminate them entirely, so weaving through it is still entirely possible. A special bonus tip here: if you find that you're having a hard time getting your weave started, you can charge and actually sometimes unleash your roll after a perfect dodge. Most of the time, opponents will see this and backdash, but it might actually work the first time you do it as a mix-up tool. Even at worst, you've now got your roll going without issue, so you just need to close the gap from there. But how to close the gap, Dave? I've actually got a solution. If you're at a relatively long distance from your enemy while rolling, you can actually still forward dash and unleash the hooks if your timing is just right. This can be a fantastic way to bamboozle opponents, and even get your ultimate off afterward if their block is crumbled. Your ult actually does bonus damage, by the way. It's 55%, same as Trickster and the rest with bonus. Anyway, this forward dash isn't always consistent, but it usually is if you start using your hooks right after the dash completes. Like I said, this can be fantastic for a surprise attack without losing your wound up move. All of this, though, takes practice, and more practice. Nailing down timing and what to do in what situation is really crucial with your roll. So try to take all of this information I just spat at you and use it to improve. Your buildup of skill and power will naturally accrue the more you get used to the roll, so stick with it if you really want to perform. So, I've spent this whole video talking about the Dempsey roll. That may seem stupid, but look at the video length. That's a lot I just rambled at you about, and it's all important stuff to know. Ippo is an incredibly strong infighter along with charge, and the pair can really decimate those who aren't prepared. Ippo might struggle against styles good at dealing with infighters, new shotgun, but the natural mix-up and strength of your punches will get you a really good distance. Push the offensive as much as you can, wind up that roll, and you'll absolutely unleash hell to anyone dumb enough to stay close to you. With this roll-heavy guide, now finished by me, Dave Pyramid, you can show your inner light to the whole game without a care in the world. I'll catch you on the flip side, and I hope you learned something. Peace!
Let me break it down for you, Mark.